Hello folks, welcome to the Untitled channel. Today we're going to show you, give you an idea how to replace a rear wheel bearing seal. And these components are very important because these keep the outside contaminants coming into the bearing, so it prolongs the life of the bearing. So if these guys stop doing their job or they're not sealing right, the grease is gonna get mixed with dust and water and it's gonna just ruin the bearing. So you're gonna have a bigger problem than just contamination in the grease. So with that said, we're gonna show you how we replace this seal, and we're gonna expose how this seal keeps the grease in and keeps the dust out from getting into the grease. And with that said, let's get the job done. All the wheel bearings have some sort of encapsulating system, and the wheel bearing seals, that's what is their job, is to seal and protect the water and dust from coming into the system or grease escaping from their bearing. So for example, this has one seal inside because the outside is protected by this cap, but the inside it has a seal, and we're going to show you. They come in different sizes, different thickness, but this is an example how a wheel bearing seal looks like, and it could be a thicker one, and all it is that they have some sort of a spring inside to give tension in the inside, and the outside is a metal structure to keep it rounded, and all it is just pushed in and then they snug in, and we're going to show you the process on this one. So for us to remove the drum, we have to remove this cap so we can get that nut off of there, so we can remove the drum off away from the brakes and we can replace the seal. And for that, we'll remove that. So now we have to, once we remove this cap, we're going to remove this pin, this cutter pin, and then we're going to remove this locking device for the nut, and then we're going to loosen the nut and take it off, and then we're going to slide the whole assembly out. And there's a washer behind this, but we don't, that can come out with a drum, but we're concerned about taking the pin, the sheet metal piece, and then loosen up the nut that holds the whole structure to the spindle. Once you remove the cover piece of the nut, this is a 22 millimeter socket that is required to take it off. It shouldn't be too tight, so we take it off. When you're doing this job, you make sure that your brakes are not on, so you can extract that drum. And once you remove that nut, there's a washer behind this that you don't worry too much about it. Once you pull this drum out, it should come out. So this is the washer though, but we pull this out now. So we did a video about this, doing the brake cleaner on this drum system. As you can see, all that dust, we're going to remove it, and we're going to take all that dust from there by cleaning it, and then we're going to show you the process of replacing this seal. But we're going to clean our brake system. Okay, folks. So one thing before you start messing with the old seal, and then before you start damaging it, make sure that what you got is the new seal and is the same one as the one you got on the wheel. So you compare it. You set the other one right on top of it. You make sure it's the same diameter, the same thing. If you need to, you can always fit it into the wheel spindle where it was, so you can get an idea that that is the same seal that you're using to replace the old one with. So once you do that, then we start damaging the old one, because we don't care about that one. We care about the new one. But before we start damaging the old one, you want to make sure that the new one is the same one. So we take off the old one. So now that we're ready to pull our old seal out, we know that the new one is the one that is gonna replace this one. So we don't care if we damage the old one. So we just put a screwdriver like this, and we pry it away from the drum. So now what we're going to be doing is, before we put the seal in or put it back into the drum, we're going to take the wheel bearing off, and we're going to clean all the grease off from it and the internal, and then we're going to put new grease in, and then we can put our wheel bearing in, and then our seal, so we know we start with a fresh grease in there. So we do that before we put the seal in. One thing you can do to clean the wheel bearings off, to get the grease off of it, you put some gasoline in a little container, and then you drop your wheel bearing in there, and it's going to help you clean the wheel bearing, get all that old grease off of it. So we're going to just dump it into this gasoline. For this procedure, we put gloves on because we are going to be dealing with the gasoline, and we don't want our fingers or hands get dried out too much. So we're not used to wearing gloves, but for this procedure we're going to be using them, and we recommend them because gasoline will dry up your hands. So as you can see, we drop it in, and by the time we took it out, it's almost clean. So we're just going to scrub it, clean it, so we can grease it again. So now that we have cleaned our bearing with fuel, with gasoline, we're going to spray it with brake cleaner to clean and evaporate everything. So once we do that, we set this aside and we let it evaporate completely, and then before we start adding the grease on, and then we can clean inside the drum and grease it up in there as well. So we do that. So now that we have the bearing, the inner bearing greased up and greased inside as well. So we're gonna put the seal, because otherwise we can't put the bearing with the seal in. So we put the bearing first, and then we put the seal in. Now that we have put the grease and the seal, we just gotta push it in, and it almost goes in by hand. And if you push it in by hand and it just didn't go down on some areas, you can grab a hammer and just tap it really slow, just so you can get it flush with the metal or the lip. So this is how it should be, flush. And then now we just add some more grease in here, and we put it in, because this is the inner part of the spindle, or the wheel side. Now we have the outer wheel bearing greased off. So what we do is we put some grease in there, and we put our wheel bearing, the outer wheel bearing in, and then we start putting back everything together. Well, folks, we wanted to show you, give you an idea how easy it is to replace a wheel bearing seal and Toyota Tercel. And for all cars, this component is very important on the wheels, because this component keeps, it's a seal that keeps, just like its name is a seal that keeps the grease from getting out and dust and water from coming into the bearing. So that prolongs the life of the bearing, because if that component is not doing its job, the grease is going to come out. It's going to affect your brake system, and because that grease is not supposed to be on the brake system, and if the dust gets in, it's going to create problems for your bearing, and it's going to shorten the life of your bearing, and you're going to have big problems. So when you do some maintenance, if you grease off your bearings or you put new bearings in, put the new wheel seal bearing in, so that way you start from fresh, and that way the components, the bearings don't go bad because that wheel seal wasn't replaced on the beginning. So it's a good thing to do, replace the wheel bearing seal with the bearings, so everything lasts longer. And with that said, folks, for those who haven't subscribed to our channel, please do subscribe to our channel, El Canal El Chano Jose. If you like this video, give us thumbs up, share it, and we'll see you soon with more videos here in El Canal El Chano Jose.